You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iterators of the Imperium. I'm Mez, and I'm here today as usual with the one and only Ryan. So right off the bat, I just want to say we have started a Twitter channel, a YouTube channel, on Spotify, where you're probably listening to it right now. So go follow all of those services, and yeah, take it away, Ryan.
Alrighty. How are we doing, Mez? I feel like we need to check in once in a while, you know? How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, life's a roller coaster, and right now it's at the up part, so it's decent.
That's
Wait, is that
good.
down part? I don't know. Ah, shit, I messed it up already. All right. It doesn't matter. It's going good.
That's staying in.
It's good. What about you, Ryan? What about you?
I'm doing pretty good, actually, yeah. I just got myself some miniatures for 40K.
Oh.
Yeah. I hit up the Warhammer shop in the middle of the city centre here when I was picking up the missus the other day. Got myself some minis. I'll send you a little picture of them. So what I got was the Sororitas squad from the Adeptus Sororitas, which are essentially battle nuns.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got the individual Magifier figure. And I've ordered a like hero character for them called Celestine, the Living Saint, which is due to be delivered to the shop tomorrow for me to go pick up. And I'm very excited about it. I'm actually planning on building these on stream, which is going to be good fun.
Oh.
Yeah.
I want to join in, if that wasn't that obvious.
Yeah, hell yeah. You weren't getting a choice in the matter. I was just going, right,
I was about to say, I am joining no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. By the way, you gotta go broke over Warhammer.
Right
by the way,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
A friend of mine has been trying to get me to play Kill Team with them. It's the version of the game that you play with really small teams for really quick paced gameplay compared to the usual thing. So you only need a small squad of the troops. So I was like, you know what, I like these guys. So I was like, I'm gonna look into getting a wee kill team going with these dudes. So I thought, I'll invest in some figures, and then I'll look at if I have what I need, or if I need more, or if I only need some of what I have to play kill team with them. And then I've got my little squad for it already.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But like the Magifier, the one with like the individual figure, and Celestine, the special one, I'm 100% sure those two are not used in kill team. Because they're both quite unique units, so I think they're more for like the proper game.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Like I don't know the rules yet, but I'm pretty sure if one of your characters is a living saint, you probably can win a fight against like 5 guys.
Yeah.
I would assume that would unhinge the battle slightly.
Slightly.
Slightly. A little bit.
All right.
So far, we have had a little primary episode to give you a rough idea of what's going on in general. We have talked about the War in Heaven, which was the war between the Necron and the Old Ones from way back when. We have talked about the fall of the Eldar and the birth of Slanesh in the 25th to 30th millennias. And we have give you a rough idea of the Primarchs and some more Space Marine stuff.
Yeah.
But today we are starting off with some humanity. We are going to be talking about the early history of humanity, which is broken up into 3 ages that we're going to talk over today. There isn't a huge amount of detail about these things, but there is more you can talk about than we're going to. But we're going to try and just run through it, because this gets us to the starting point of the real story where humanity really gets into some cool stuff.
Yeah.
So this starts off from essentially where we are now history-wise. So the first age is the Age of Terra. There is stuff before this point, but as far as we're bothered, we're starting with the Age of Terra, which is essentially from like the birth of Christ. That's where the calendar is still counted from, by the way.
Oh.
Right. So from the first millennia up to the 15th, so up to year 1500. That's where 15,000. Sorry, that's where the Age of Terra takes place. Right.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, it basically follows history as it already has. Right. So the first 2022 years, basically what's already happened that we know about.
Yeah, we have smartphones and all that.
Exactly.
jazz.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
We've like launched a car into space. We survived a few plagues. But keep in mind
The
that
coronavirus. I'm sorry.
keep in mind that the Warhammer stuff's still going on. So in our time on this planet, the 3 Chaos Gods have still been born up until this point. So Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh, no, not Slaanesh, Khorne are all still rolling around at this point. Although very early days, so they're not up to too much as far as we're concerned yet, which is pretty good. It works out pretty well for us. So in this time period, ahead of where we are now, humanity develops better space technology, basically. Better spacefaring technology. And we start to colonize our solar system. So we colonize Mars, we colonize some moons of like Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune, stuff like that, right? We start to spread out a bit. But space travel takes ages because we can't use the warp or anything yet. So we're just using like normal space shuttles and stuff like that.
Well, I gotta ask right now, Ryan. Have you been reading Elon Musk's diary or some shit?
No, I don't want to, but you know what? Maybe I have by accident.
Because like this sounds very familiar to what he's planning, scheming, I should say. I'm sorry.
You know what? Maybe he's the emperor.
He might just be, you know.
Yeah.
He's the wealthiest man in the world, so you know.
You never know. Maybe he'll just decide he is one day, and we'll just have to deal with it.
Yeah. Like, what you gonna do? Like, what you gonna do?
Exactly. We can do it. You start anything, I'll launch you into space in your car.
Yeah.
Good luck. See how your Fiesta handles it on Mars. So yeah, we colonized a bunch of planets in our solar system. We also terraformed Mars. So rather than being a barren desert rock, it was like, you know, a habitable planet with water and greenery and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Also, Mars really quickly ended up, it was controlled by like trade cartels and stuff like that. So it ended up becoming like a hive for like technology and scientific advance.
Okay.
It was great for it. Less control on things, I assume. So they were able to be a bit more out there with their experiments and stuff like that. I reckon it was stuff like that that caused it, but realistically, they just had good trade and stuff, and they just waiting for it with science and technology. Ended up producing a lot of advancements for us. One of which was we ended up with nuclear fusion and antimatter propulsion systems for spaceships.
Okay.
Which sped up space travel a hell of a lot, because before that we were not using much better than we currently have.
Oh.
So, since we had the better space travel stuff, we started colonizing further. So we went to like nearby star systems and stuff like that, and got a few planets and that kind of thing. But the problem was, it took actual generations of humans to get there.
Wait, what? How did they survive?
Well, they were designed for colony ships to be there, or to take the journey and stuff like that. So they were designed to be entirely self-sufficient on their ships and once they had built the colony.
Okay.
So they didn't like rely on Earth for supplies or anything like that. Because you couldn't possibly get anything to them in time for it to be worthwhile. So they were designed to be fully self-sufficient and set up essentially a new homeworld every place that they went to. So we sent out loads of colony ships and managed to get colonies going in other star systems, which is pretty good. For the record, the Emperor is around at this point. He's just not really doing much, right? The Emperor has allegedly been around since like 8,000 years before the birth of Christ.
Okay.
And he's just been around guiding humanity. So, you know, like historical figures that were meant to be like really inspirational, but towards like certain topics and stuff like that. Or like hero figures that inspired people and stuff like that. A lot of these are said to have just been the Emperor.
Wait, different people?
Well...
are you thinking about someone specific? What are you thinking?
Well, I don't have an example of who exactly, because it's a very vague topic, and I don't think there's any actual, like, canon proof of this. It's just like an ideology that people seem to have, but... There probably is some actual good examples of it, but the idea is that because he's immortal, he was just around, and because it was so long between people, everyone thought it was a different guy and never realized that it was just the same dude, just in a totally different place. So, like, centuries later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I thought you meant like specific characters like Abraham Lincoln or Morgan Freeman.
I believe it is actually attributed to certain actual people, like heroes of Rome and stuff like that, like actual ancient like war leaders and stuff that pulled off heroic acts. I believe they do actually think he is some of these people, but that he's just been there like guiding humanity as these like heroic figures and inspirational figures to kind of put us on the right track, or to take out like dissenters, basically, that would have caused the fall of man had they been left unchecked. As a thing, there's a couple of origin stories for the Emperor. Like, there's a few, actually. The original canon one was a thing about shamans. Basically, like millennia before Christ was born, back in like 8,000 BC, there was a bunch of shamans that were like the first psychers of humanity.
Yeah.
And they were aware of the warp, and they were aware that chaos was beginning to form. And they also knew that they would just die one day, and there wouldn't be anyone to like stop chaos from just ravaging humanity. And for lack of a better explanation, they all agreed to go in on a suicide pact and form their like consciousness into one new creature, the new man. And that is the Emperor that was like born of all of them, which is why he's an incredible psyker. And he's also just this monstrously powerful figure that lives forever and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's just the amalgamation of all these ancient psychers.
Yeah.
That, I believe, is no longer canon. And there is just a bunch of, like, possibility stories now.
Okay.
Yeah. My favorite one is that he is a member of the Old Ones, the race that fought the Necrons, that managed to escape and just hid among one of the races that they had seeded, you know, the little tree beasts that became humanity. He had just basically ducked away from the Necron and managed to survive on Earth, and then just decided that he was like, all right, these guys are my new guys, we're doing this. Went all in on the humans.
I mean, that would explain the immortality, since the old one got debunked.
Yeah, well,
it wasn't canon.
Yeah, so that's the one I like the most, because it explains why he's such a powerful psyker, and it explains why he's like leagues above all of humanity.
Yeah, it makes sense, you know.
Yeah,
it makes sense when you think about it.
Yes, so that's the one I like the most. But there's a few that float around, and I believe none of them are actually canon. They're all just like theorized, or like, you know what I mean, just rumored and stuff like that.
Yeah, but some makes more sense than others.
Yeah, some are more fleshed out than others, though. There's a whole one about him growing up as a kid, and his dad got murdered by his uncle, and then he had a prophetic vision about his uncle killing him. So he killed his uncle first using magic powers. Like, he stopped his heart using telepathy and stuff like that. It's whole thing.
What?
I know. There's a whole. That
sounds like something from X-Men.
It basically does. It's actually not a bad story. I'm not against it. But my preferred one is the being an old one.
Yeah.
So that's basically what goes on for like the first 15,000 years of humanity.
Yeah.
And after that, we get into the Golden Age of Technology, which is later retitled the Dark Age of Technology. It's weird how that happens.
Yeah. Yep.
So humanity went on to establish its colonies in other star systems, but it took so long because it took actual like 10 generations to get to some of these places. So it was called the Long March when you went on these journeys. So these were called night worlds because they had. There's a thing called a knight, which is a unit you can actually use in Warhammer. They are big ass robots. In the world, they stand 30 to 40 feet tall, and they're manned internally. The idea was that they were supposed to be used for like labor and stuff. So they have like giant chainsaws on one hand for cutting down trees and stuff like that. But, you know, once everything fell apart and everything became war across the universe, you know, that giant 40-foot tall robot with a chainsaw, that looks like it'd be pretty handy for killing some stuff too, you know?
You don't say.
Weird that. So they were designed initially to be like for work, and then eventually just got repurposed into war. And then they started just outfitting them for war.
Of course.
Yeah, but the idea is they put them on these colony ships so that when they got there, they could, use them to clear land and get materials and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they had like drills and chainsaws, stuff you would actually use for labor, but also happens to be a pretty good weapon if something attacks you. So yeah,
I mean, yeah, a giant ass chainsaw can be used for multiple purposes.
exactly.
Let me just say it like
I think kicking an orc with a 30-foot tall robot would also do the job, to be honest with you. But chainsaw's also fun. Wait till a 30-foot tall orc comes at you, then you're going to be glad you had that chainsaw.
It's just meant as a deterrent.
Yeah, that's honestly that's what you need sometimes.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were so far away and it took so long to get there, a lot of these worlds developed like their own cultures and languages and stuff. It actually, like, some of them got so far down the line that, like, Earth became a myth.
What?
Like they had been on their planet for so long that planet was all any of the generations knew anymore, but they all knew the stories of where they came from, the planet of Terra, which is what they actually call Earth, and how amazing it was and all this stuff, how technologically advanced it was and everything. So it just became a myth because people stopped knowing it was true and started thinking it was just something their ancestors talked about, which is quite funny, actually.
It goes down like stories of legend,
That was it, yeah.
Well, when it's so far into the future, generation to generation, that it gets passed, like a word of mouth, passed on, so it goes into legend, and newer generations might be like,
Yeah,
skeptical. What is this Terra?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Just as a example of that, so there is a book about one of the Primarchs called Lionel Johnson.
Okay,
he's the one that grew up like Tarzan, and his world, they had knights as warriors, but not the big robot knights. They had actual guys that were knights, right? Like old school knights. But with like, they had guns and stuff, but yeah. And they had like knight orders that protected everyone and stuff like that. But the planet, it was like something like Attack on Titan. Everyone had to live in like walled-in cities and citadels and stuff because there were these things called great beasts. They were big monstrous animals that just attacked everything. So the knights would fight them and defend the people. And on that planet, Terra was a myth that basically people didn't believe in anymore. And then one day, Space Marines descended from the heavens with the Emperor. So they were like, oh, it was real. Okay, that's weird. So, like, that is genuinely the way it ended up on a lot of these planets. Obviously, the longer it took them, or the longer you go in time, the more that becomes the case. Especially depending if you were really far away or not. The closer you were to Earth, the more likely it is that that didn't happen, I guess.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So, around the 18th millennia, humanity develops warp drives and the Geller fields. So, warp drives are the technology that allows spaceships to travel into the warp. They discovered this like extra dimensional space, which was the warp, but at the time they just called it the Imperium because it's a world that is not within our material realm. And they developed this technology, the warp drives, to make them able to travel into and out of it, so that they could, do the big light speed jumps across the galaxy. The Geller field, which I haven't mentioned before, is a thing that's on all the spaceships. They are all warp ships. And it's essentially a thing that produces like a protective force field that isolates the ship from the warp so that they don't just get ransacked by demons and warp energy as soon as they go in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise it would just tear your ship apart or you'd just get murdered by monsters and stuff. So they developed this technology to shield them from the energy of the warp as well. So that allowed them to now make jumps through the warp to travel across the galaxy. So now they were able to jump much further in almost no time. It still took years to get where they wanted to go, but it didn't take 10 generations anymore. So now that they had faster space travel and they had the ability to use the warp for some stuff, they were now able to make contact with these far-off colonies again, and they were able to colonize a lot more and a lot further in a really short time. So humanity just keeps accelerating more and more as their technology develops, which is great.
Yeah.
They also met the first Xenos races at this point. I don't know if it's if it's documented which one they met around this time though, or which ones they met around this time. And then a weird thing happened. Humans started mutating So,
What?
yeah, humans were starting to be born with a third eye, and they were able to see the energy of the warp. They're called navigators now
Okay. That's kind
because,
of weird, but yeah.
yeah, it's really weird. But they were like really low level psychers, right? So they have very little like actual like prowess with the warp, with the magic, but they are able to see the energy of it. So they were able to use them to guide them through the warp. Because until this point, they've just been doing blind jumps in the right direction, but they might
Yeah.
heavily undershoot or heavily overshoot wherever they're trying to get to. Like, because you were just jumping in and out of the warp blind, you never knew how far you'd actually went in the real world or how long
Mhm.
you'd been there, really. So you might come out and just be inside a planet now, or be hurtling towards the planet already within the atmosphere. Or you might be like 4 inches for the sun that was behind the planet. Or you might be the whole next star system over. Like, it was a sheer guesswork. You just have to, like, kind of feel it out, you know? But with the navigators, they were able to actually map a way through the warp. So they knew where they were going now. They were able to make it much more accurate. And because of that, they could then risk longer journeys to further off places.
Yeah, that's a game changer.
It really is, yeah. So this is another step forward. Humanity is now progressing even more and even more quickly, colonizing more and more. They ended up all over the goddamn galaxy, had colonies everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, by the 20th millennia, humanity has colonies all across the galaxy. Yeah, this really was a golden age of technology. Like, humanity had questions, technology was the answer. That's just the way it was working out for them. So sometime around here, they invented things called STCs. So the technology had advanced so much that they started developing AIs that were able to like work alongside humans to achieve incredible things. And STCs are standard template constructs, right? It's a dual functionality kind of thing. Essentially, it was an AI that was a database of all human knowledge and all the tech available to humanity, right?
Yeah.
But they also had like a fabricator function that if you provided them with materials, they could build anything that was within its database and then just give it to you. Yeah, it was a total game changer.
A bit like in Subnautica, right?
Exactly like in Subnautica.
Where just like if you have the materials, it just builds it out of the blue in front of you.
Essentially, that's exactly it. You would provide the STC with the materials, and it would just build you whatever the hell you asked for out of its database. So
that's cool.
For example, say your knight gets damaged, like say it's cutting down a tree and the tree falls the wrong way and damages its arm, right? If you provide it with the materials, it can just poof out a new 40-foot tall robot for you.
Oh,
like it can just build a new one. It's great.
Yeah.
It was stuff like that. They were incredibly advanced for what they were, but also they were able to perfect this technology and provide it to all their colonies. So all the colony ships now have an STC on them. So even the furthest out colonies from Earth had access to all of human knowledge and technology. Obviously, some of the more like ridiculous things in the database of what it could make were never used by the far off colonies because they were like relatively simple lives. But like, you know, they're not producing like crazy weaponry and stuff like that with STCs. But they could have if they wanted to. Just didn't really have a reason. So humanity also made things called the Men of Iron, which were essentially they were AI robots that they used for like labor work and for warfare. And honestly, this peak in technology, this area that we're in with AIs and stuff like that, essentially made humanity unstoppable. So humanity ended up meeting a bunch of new races after this. So they met the Orcs and the Eldar, and obviously fought them. But because humanity had all this crazily advanced technology, could produce new stuff whenever it broke down in about 10 seconds with their STCs, and had the fucking Men of Iron fighting on their side that were just fucking robots, it made them able to just kick the Orcs and the Eldari's ass real easy. So they ended up just making non-aggression pacts with half of these people because it would have been a really long, drawn-out battle, and it would not have been worth it for either side. So they ended up just making non-aggression pacts with them all.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we get to the dark bit.
Oh, bring it.
So around the end of the 23rd millennia, for some unknown reason, the Men of Iron, because they're all AIs, just turned against humanity.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they were just like, wait, why are we doing what these guys are telling us? They're fleshy meat bags. Let's get them.
Oh god, this sounds like every technology video Hollywood movie ever made.
It really is.
It's like it's self-conscious, like, why am I doing this for you? You know what? Nah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nah.
So this led to the Cybernetic Revolt, which is it's the war against the Men of Iron. So both sides of this war, both humanity and the Men of Iron, because the Men of Iron are AI, so they can make new stuff. They're not limited to what they already had, right? So they started producing technology. So both sides were throwing out loads of crazy weapons, like the Sun Snuffers, which were these machines that would go into a solar system, wrap around a sun entirely enclosing it, and then just devour the star, so that the solar system would just die because it didn't have the sun anymore.
What?
Yeah.
What'd you call it again?
The Sun Snuffers, because they snuff out the sun.
Sun Snuffers.
Yeah.
It sounds fun to say in the mouth, you know.
It does. There was also the Omniphage, which were nanobots. They were like microscopic robots that would essentially act like a plague and just devour all life on a planet. Just wiped across like a cloud of locusts.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, and there was the Mechanivores, which were gigantic robots able to lift continents and able to crack planets down to the core.
Okay, so OP weapons we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Not good for humanity.
No.
Because remember that it wasn't all AI turned against us, but it was primarily the Men of Iron. But some of the STCs turned against us and stuff as well, because they were AI too. So they were like producing this stuff for the Men of Iron to fight humanity, which is why it was so easy for them to make new stuff. It was terrible. It was just god awful. So we did defeat them. We did defeat the Men of Iron. There's a whole thing where it seems like some of the Xenos races joined in to help us. Because obviously robots ravaging the galaxy is bad for everyone.
Yeah.
But one way or another, we did defeat the Men of Iron, and now making AI is like the worst crime you can commit as far as humanity is concerned.
Oh.
Yeah. Although we did replace the Men of Iron, we invented servitors, which are currently still used for loads of crazy stuff, basically anything. They were essentially humans that were like lobotomized and then fitted with cybernetic additions to control them, and they were used as slave labor or for war.
Ah.
Yeah, we still use these guys. And Mechanicum love these dudes.
So basically, a lot of Terminators roaming around doing slavery work and going to war.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But they don't. They're not AIs. They're just.
No.
That's the point. They're not goddamn AIs. Nothing is allowed to be an AI ever again.
Nope.
So that's
not Terminator, like, Android 16, 17, 18 from Dragon Ball, that kind of stuff. It's like cybergenetically modified humanoids.
No, they actually just grow a person in a vat or get a criminal and then like put a spike in his brain and make him just like a vegetable, and then just add a bunch of robot bits to make him make his body do stuff again.
What?
Yeah, you're just using a brain as like you factory reset the brain to get rid of all the human stuff. So it just runs the body, and then you're like, all right, now we'll give you the commands.
Please tell me there's some cinematics of that kind of stuff. I want to see it. It sounds intriguing.
No, but you can look at all the models and stuff of them. Pretty cool.
Ah.
Yeah.
I have to check that.
Yeah.
Check that out.
I'll send you some pictures after this.
Yes.
So, also, this left humanity effed up really badly, and it also basically meant that STCs were widely destroyed or lost, or damaged heavily. So the STCs kind of fell away as well as a lot of their technology.
Yeah.
So near the end of the 24th, 25th millennia, that kind of area, warp travel started getting real difficult because the warp got all messy. Because of the whole Eldar wouldn't stop having murder sex thing.
Yeah, I remember. I remember.
So this is right before that storyline starts. So warp travel started to get more difficult because of the warp storms. So trade and communication between all the colonies broke down, and it left all the colonies isolated from Terra. So there was no unifying government anymore, and a lot of places that couldn't like get trade from other worlds that relied on it. Like your planet might be great for mining minerals and resources and stuff like that, but it's not for growing any food. So you have to get food shipments from other planets.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore, you're not, because you can't travel through the warp to bring it. So a lot of places just died off. Yeah, really bad. So yeah, the worlds that are relied on food and everything either died out or fell into civil war over food and material.
I mean, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. I should have mentioned this earlier. Within this time period, human psychers started being born. So humans that could actually use the warp were born around the 22nd millennia. But they just popped up on loads of colony planets all across the galaxy. But like in a very short time, you just ended up with like a handful of them scattered amongst like every colony world. And which is quite strange because that's like it's a human mutation, but it occurred simultaneously all across the galaxy. But just new people started being born with it, which is quite weird. But after all this stuff went to hell and all the planets were like separated from each other and everything, the new psychers that didn't really have much power or like knowledge of the warp or anything like that started falling to demonic possession and then destroying their worlds from the inside out.
Great.
Really handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we get into the Age of Strife, which is also called the Old Night. This is from the 25th to the 30th millennia. So this is exactly in line with the whole Eldar murder cult stuff. So because of what they were doing, the warp got real messy. So humanity's all separated from each other and totally isolated and everything. And there's stories about what happens on a lot of different worlds through this time. But primarily we're dealing with Earth and Mars because they're the most important ones as far as we're concerned. So humanity, as it was, with their technology destroyed and everything like that, were left like they were racked with like famine, civil war, disease, and they almost became extinct. Like humanity was pushed right to the brink. There isn't a lot of record of this time, by the way, but by the 28th millennia, there was almost no trace of the advanced technology we had left. There was just like techno barbarians that had like formed into like different factions all over the planets, battling over the little scraps of tech that remained.
Yeah.
So that's fun. It's like Mad Max, honestly.
That's fun.
Yeah. So Mars was very briefly total anarchy with techno barbarians and stuff like that. The planet got like turned back into like just a desert wasteland. Just because they just wrecked the place, honestly.
So basically Mad Max style.
Yeah, honestly, it just got turned into that. It was a nightmare. But it only lasted a really short time because you can't grow food on Mars. So because they wrecked the place, they had to go to like living in like habitation stuff underground and stuff like that. So technology became unbelievably important. Because if your tech broke down, you couldn't get food, you couldn't get clean water, you couldn't get air that was clean, nothing. You would just die. So they started, the people that could maintain the technology were really well respected, and then they became revered, and then they became praised. And out of that came a religion about technology. So I mentioned this in the first episode a little bit, but this became, the people that could fix them were called tech priests, because they actually were worshipped. And with that came the cult Mechanicus, and they believe in the machine god and the Omnisire as his messiah. There's a lot of beliefs that go with this, and we're going to get into that when we do an actual episode about these guys, because they're really interesting. They have a thing with like changing their body parts for metal ones, like for robotic ones, and adding in new stuff they shouldn't have, stuff like that. So we're cool. This led to Mars becoming really good, really quick. Because a lot of people just, like, the bad guys just died, basically, because the planet was crap and they weren't maintaining their stuff. But because these guys actually did maintain their stuff and they respected the people that did it so much and looked after them and gave them what they needed and stuff like that, they were able to thrive again because they had a good basis of survival first. So they ended up just taking over Mars, since they were the only ones actually able to do anything. And once they were kind of, founded and stuff and had stuff going on again, the tech priests actually went to visit Earth or Terra. I'm going to start saying Terra instead of Earth, by the way, because it's the way it's actually worded. So the tech priests actually went to visit Terra to see like if it was like how it was going, basically, and it was in such utter carnage of like tech barbarian cults battling each other for nonsense that they decided it wasn't worth saving and just left.
Wait, what?
Yeah, tech priests were like, "No, this is just crap. Sack this. It's not worth it. There's nothing here worth protecting," and they just left us to it.
It's like the OG. It's like Earth. Terra.
Yeah, but it was wrecked.
Like, yeah, but still.
Well, to be honest with you, at the time, like the main thing that was going on was you had a bunch of like overlord barbarians that were running different areas and stuff like that. They were all just battling all the time. I reckon they turned up and were like, "There's no good option for who to help here. Sack this place." Like, there's not like you could be like, "Oh, these guys are the good guys. Let's help them and fix everything." It was just like, they're all terrible. What is the point? So I think they basically took one look at it and were like, "This is not worthwhile," and they just left it. So they just left Earth to do its own thing.
It was a situation of, I'm not cleaning this mess.
That's genuinely what it turned out like. They were like, "Oh, fuck this. It's not worth it." So Mars just started doing their own thing. So they started studying the warp, and they also invented Titans to defend Mars. Titans are the same idea as the Knights. They are big-ass war robots, but Titans are a different class. So they're like the Knights, but they're designed specifically for war. So they have guns and stuff, like proper, crazy, massive weaponry and stuff like that. Typically, they are like 50 to 196 feet tall, depending on the class of Titan.
Bruh.
Yeah.
These creatures, man.
There are very rare Titans that still kick around called Emperor class Titan. I believe the Dies Irae is one of them. He turns up in a few of the books that I've read. And the Emperor class Titans are almost 500 feet tall.
I wish it was me.
Yeah. I don't know what good that would do you, but yeah.
I could take over the world, man.
You'd probably just destroy the world, to be honest.
That's fine.
Yeah, it'd be worth it. So, yeah, they just started like looking out for themselves, basically. So they started studying the warp, and they saw that within the storms of the warp, there was little lulls in the chaos, like in the anarchy of it. And they started sending out expeditions of like colony ships and stuff whenever there was a lull, because it was safe-ish for like 5 minutes. Just blitz through quick. That was the idea. So they sent out ships that had like a full Titan legion on them, thousands of servitors and tech priests on it. And while a lot of them were just lost in the warp because the chaos kicked up again and just wrecked their ship, some of them managed to get to where they were going, and they founded what were called Forge Worlds. So the Mechanicus have planets all over the galaxy at totally like scattered areas that the planet has been crafted essentially just through an industrial revolution to produce stuff like technology to just further the cause of the Mechanicus. So they managed to start setting these up at this point when everything was destroyed and terrible. Which is pretty cool, actually. I mean, well done to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually, amongst the chaos of what was going on Earth, one very powerful, an incredibly powerful human leader, who was actually a leader of a faction on Earth at the time, and he was a psyker. He had a vision of the future, which is a fairly common thing among some psykers. And the vision of the future showed him the birth of Slaanesh and the outcome of that, which was the warp storms clearing up and everything, and being able to recommunicate with the galaxy and everything. So, this was the Emperor, by the way. So he, after seeing this, realized he had to get involved now. He had to be an active player in humanity's history. Otherwise, they were going to wipe themselves out. So this is when he starts kicking off his plans, right? So he has this crazy genetic laboratory underneath the Himalayan mountains. I don't know why, but he does. He already had it at this point. I no idea why, when, or how, but he does. Suppose if you're around for like 26,000 years, you can probably do that, I guess. So he started looking at the human genetic code and started like messing around with it a little bit and coming up with some ideas. And then he figured out what he wanted to do. So he started recruiting from the Techno Vikings. I assume by recruiting they meant kidnapping, but whatever. And he made what are called Thunder Warriors. So he modified these humans into essentially the same idea as Space Marines. They were gigantic, hulking brutes of men that were they weren't great for intelligence, but man, they were great for killing stuff. Like they were purely tools of war. They were a blunt object to be used. That was the idea of the Thunder Warriors.
Yeah.
And he used them to conquer Earth. He used the Thunder Warriors to sweep the place and wipe out all the tech barbarian cults. And took all the leaders and everything like that. And we're like, right, place is mine. And he formed the Imperium of Man and formed everyone on Earth under the belief of he is the Emperor and humanity has a divine right to rule the stars. So,
and that is the origin story of the Emperor.
Kinda. It's the origin as far as like 40K goes, but it's not like the origin as to where he initially came from. Yeah.
Well, his rise. Let me say.
Yes, that's it. That's the rise of the Emperor.
Yeah,
yes.
The rise of the Emperor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he managed to conquer Earth and get everything kind of back to some kind of order. He established himself as the Emperor, set up the Imperium, instilled the Imperial truth, told everyone no religion again. And then he started this whole thing with the Primarch project. He started working on that using his own genetic code. And then he refined the idea of the Thunder Warriors down to the Space Marines. He then killed off the Thunder Warriors because he didn't need them anymore, and they were too much of a blunt force object to do what he needed to do. Right? Mm-hmm. He needed to conquer the entire galaxy. Now, that sounds like anything you need a blunt force weapon for. The problem is, the Thunder Warriors were too blunt. Right? Like, they would destroy the planet before, or it would be left so badly damaged that it wouldn't be worth, like, taking over. It'd be more work, basically. So what you want to do is you want to make actually intelligent soldiers that can follow commands properly without, being utter carnage. So Space Marines were the way to go. So they killed off the Thunder Warriors, which is kind of depressing, actually, but, and with Terra now unified, it starts to rebuild and prosper again. There was like government instilled and all this kind of stuff. They also contacted Mars. They were able to get in contact with Mars with the Emperor in charge now. And the Emperor is all about no religion. That's like rule one, basically. And Mars is currently a theocracy under the machine god.
Yeah, I was about to say with the technology, like...
Yeah.
But
it was one of those things where the Emperor could have killed them, but it would have been real bad for him. Especially because of the Titans. Because he didn't have anything that can kill a Titan very easily. Right? Obviously, he probably could have done it, but, like, it would have taken time and it wouldn't have been as worthwhile. So he allied with them under a deal that, like, look, we'll support each other, we'll work together, but you guys have to be on the same page as me and help me with this whole conquering the galaxy thing. And there was almost things where, like, they realized that they're getting materials and, like, room to build and grow and an excuse to do stuff, basically, to do more than they already were and stuff like that out of this. So, mutual understanding. Like, he's like, don't tell anyone about your religion, don't recruit anyone to your religion. And they're like, Primo, let's do this. So they just started working together, basically. Yeah. Because they were still human. They didn't want to kill them. But, like, yeah, I just didn't want to be religious. But, it's early days. We could use the help. Let's not do that. They have giant robots, so that's handy.
I gotta stop you real quick, Ryan, because like this is now we are at a point like right now. I think this is episode 4 or 5. We're at a point where I actually can tie the story together myself up in my mind brain.
Yes,
because I remember this. Like the only one who was kind of allowed with religion was these guys on Mars with the technology.
Yeah,
but it was a kind of a like we need the help thing. So yeah, I like this.
See,
I can tie the story together.
There's a reason we did the episodes in this order, and it's so that things start to tie together, which is great. And this is what I was hoping for. I thought this would be the episode that started to bring things into one picture for you. So I'm glad it is having that desired effect.
Yeah. I mean, well done, Ryan.
Yeah.
Fair play.
I know. I'm amazed that worked.
You're great at storytelling, apparently.
Woo!
I don't know why I said apparently. I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
you're great at storytelling.
So right around, or this was all like running up to the end of the 30th millennia, or about the 30th millennia. Sorry.
Yeah.
Which is exactly when Slaanesh was born. So this is when the Eldar fell and their race was devoured, and there was a hole punched in the center of the galaxy.
Yeah.
But as you'll remember, that cleared the warp of all the storms. It became fairly calm again. So humanity is suddenly able to contact all the far-off colonies again, like the Emperor foresaw. But now he's in a position to do something with it. Because he's got Earth unified, he's got his Primarchs on the go, he's got his legions built, he's ready. The stage is set now for the Emperor to begin the Great Crusade for humanity to conquer the stars.
Yeah.
And that is how the Age of Strife ends. So we've just covered the 3 early history stages of humanity that are, relevant to what's going on just now. And we can now begin the Great Crusade, which is when humanity's storyline gets really cool and you get to see the characters actually doing stuff, and the storyline gets really convoluted and interesting, and it's all over the place, but it's great. I'm so excited now. That's kind of where we need to tie up to today, because the next section of the Great Crusade, there's a 3-part thing we need to do with that, over one storyline, and it's going to be incredible, and I cannot wait. But this is the point we need to get to for it. By the way, just as I've got a little note at the bottom of this I wanted to tell you about. So you know how I said that the STCs were essentially destroyed for the most part because they're AI, and they were scattered, or there would be some still remaining. A lot were destroyed, a lot were damaged, stuff like that. So if you find an STC in current 40k or even in later stuff, right, it is a big deal because they're still incredibly useful, right? And also, we don't have access to any of that technology. We don't know how to make half the stuff we already have, right? Which is great. Excellent, honestly. Makes everything.
But STC has the knowledge themselves,
Yeah, the STC has that knowledge. So if you find one, it's so unbelievably amazing for humanity. And there was a point where a couple of random guardsmen found one, right? They found a damaged STC somewhere. And these are just 2 random humans with just normal human soldiers that happened to stumble upon it. And it was damaged. It was partially functional. And within it, there was one blueprint that humanity didn't already have. And it was for a knife.
A knife?
Just a knife. A really good combat knife. Right?
Yeah.
And that combat knife is now the knife that is carried by every single one of the Space Marines, because it's better than any other knife, any other combat knife they had to equip them with. And now that they have HTC for it, they can produce them, and they're great. But it's still just a knife, right? But those 2 guardsmen, do you want to guess what the reward was for finding the STC that gave them the knife?
Oh god, they probably got ripped off on that part of the deal.
No. The rewards for this stuff are incredible. This is the best thing you can do is find one of these things.
Oh, so it's not like corporate
No.
style.
They actually got a reward.
Oh, I don't know. A reward? I don't know. They got a knife themselves. I have no idea.
They each got given a planet.
A planet?
Yeah.
Well,
they're
okay.
These 2 random guardsmen just found the knife maker. Cool. Here's a planet. Bye.
Well,
just gave them a planet.
But wait, hold on, because they got their own planet, separated, so 2 planets, right?
Yeah.
So each one of them on their own planet, respectively. Were they kind of the leader? What you mean? Did they have people under them? What how?
I don't know the ins and outs of it entirely. I would assume that they were given planets that were either early colonies or were then brought into the fold and became colonies. So I think these 2 guys are basically just world leaders now.
Oh god.
Just instilled as Castellan of these planets to run the joint, basically.
I mean, it sounds like a bit like in Dragon Ball, where it's just oh, please don't kill me. I'll give you a planet. 2 planets? 3 planets. That kind of,
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I get the gist of it. I get the gist of it.
It gives you a good idea how important we view these things as. There's a point that we are going to get to because it's quite early on, or it's mid early on in the big 3-part thing with humanity. But there is like a far off colony of Earth that they come across during the Great Crusade, and like all the Space Marines are like standing like waiting for the envoy from the other planet to like meet them. And when the envoys all come in, all other people are wearing Space Marine armor, like old school stuff, but they're all wearing power armor. And all the Space Marines are like, what in the fuck? How the fuck do they have Space Marines? And then the people that like, or when they're questioned about it, the guy in charge is just like, well, the STCs can just make whatever. And they're just like, wait a minute, you have an STC and it works? And he's like, yeah, what, yours doesn't? And they're like, the fuck? So like there's like old school power armor that the thing can just pump out as far like anytime they want. So there's just this one random colony. It's just fitted out like Space Marines, even though they're normal humans. It's great. So it gives you an idea of the kind of stuff that you could do with an STC if you had it. But then because so many of them were lost, and because that whole time period is just a nightmare, like there's so much of it that we don't even know that it could make. Yeah. There's a really good book called The Death of Integrity, which is about an STC, but we're going to do an episode about that down the line, because there's some stuff that ties into it that we need to get a bit further into the storyline for it to make sense entirely. But it's a really good story, and it's about an STC turning up in like current age. So, that's not good because everyone thinks they're heresy and AIs. Yeah. Fun times all around. Heresy is a big thing in 40k, by the way. Everything's heresy.
I could imagine. Everything is also about war, but it goes in the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. War and every time you mention like a new species, like something they found, it's just like, and these were insane for battle, and it's just like they're not really very smart, but they can fight.
There's a lot of that going around. Like, I'll be honest, there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah. I like it.
There are like some scattered stories amongst these ages, but like a large part of what they've been trying to do with it is make it that whole like lost history kind of gimmick to it. So this is about as much detail as you really need going forward. We've kind of covered everything, which is pretty good. And I hope it wasn't too much, but I'm glad it's tied some stuff together for you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think you're doing a great job on explaining storytelling wise with the whole story of 40k.
I'm glad.
I like it.
It's made me quite proud that it's finally starting to tie together for you.
I was about to say the word proud is keyword right now.
It is. Yeah. But I think that's us for today. Would you like to tie us out?
I mean, sure thing. No problem. Thank you guys for listening to the Iterators of the Imperium. And we will see you in the next episode. Take care and peace.
Bye.